We've probably all wondered about it at some point. What's the real difference between a tragic mistake and an actual crime? It's a razor-thin line, and today we're going to figure out exactly where the law draws that line, and more importantly, why. So let's jump right in with this scenario. And this isn't just something we made up. This exact situation is used as an official example in India's new criminal code, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or BNS. I mean, think about it. It's simple, it's stark, and it feels terrifyingly real. A normal person, a normal day at work, and then in a split second, a life is gone. So that brings us to the big question, right? Is this worker a murderer? Is he criminally responsible for that death? Now, your gut reaction might be, no way, it was an accident. But here's the thing. The law can't run on gut feelings. It needs a clear, logical system to figure this stuff out. And that's exactly what the law gives us. It provides a framework to sort through these really tough situations, to tell the difference between pure, terrible luck and actual criminal liability. Okay, so this is where Section 18 of the BNS comes into play. You can think of it as the legal shield for someone in a situation like the one with the hatchet. It basically says a real accident isn't a crime. But, and this is a huge but, it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. That one sentence is packed with a very specific checklist, and every single condition has to be met. And what's really interesting is that this idea isn't new at all. As you can see, Section 18 in the brand new BNS is literally a word-for-word copy of a law from way back in 1860. That's no accident. It shows just how timeless and important this principle of justice really is. So, let's break down how this protective shield actually works. Because, like I said, it's not automatic. To get the protection of Section 18, you have to satisfy every single part of its test. Think of it like a 5-point checklist. First, what you were doing has to be legal. Chopping wood, not breaking into a house. Second, you have to do it in a lawful way, like safely in your yard, not swinging an axe in a crowded park. Third, you've got to use lawful tools, a regular axe, not some illegal weapon. Fourth, and this is the absolute key, you have to use proper care and caution. And finally, you can't have any criminal intent. If you fail on even one of these points, that legal protection just vanishes. So let's really zoom in on that crucial fourth point, proper care and caution. What does that even mean? Well, it's not about what you think is careful. The law uses what's called an objective standard. What would a reasonable, ordinary person have done in that exact same situation? And of course, that standard changes. The level of care you need when you're tossing a frisbee is way different than the care you need when you're swinging a hatchet. So here's the bottom line. Any bit of negligence, any failure to be reasonably careful, and that defense is gone. It's the carelessness that matters, not just the tragic result. So let's see how courts actually use these 5 checks in the real world, especially when it comes to that all-important test of proper care. Okay, look at these 2 real cases. They perfectly show the difference. In the first one, Tunda v. Rex, you have 2 friends wrestling, a totally lawful activity. Tragically, one of them died. The court called it an excusable accident. Why? Well, they both agreed to wrestle, there was no foul play, and they were being as careful as you'd expect. Now compare that to Sitaram v. Rajasthan. A worker digging with a spade accidentally killed someone nearby. That was ruled criminal negligence. The key difference? He knew people were close by, but didn't take the right precautions. He just lacked proper care. The act was legal, but the way he did it was negligent. Let's bring this idea even closer to home with a situation I'm sure we could all imagine. Okay, picture this. You're driving your car, following all the traffic laws to a T. Suddenly, a tire bursts, not because you were careless, but because of some hidden defect from the factory you couldn't possibly have known about. Someone gets hurt. That is a textbook excusable accident. It was unforeseen, it was outside your control. But now, let's change one little detail. What if you were speeding? Boom, the whole equation flips. You failed the proper care and caution test, and that defensive accident is completely off the table. So, why does the law get into all these tiny specific details? It really comes down to a very fundamental idea of what justice is all about. It comes down to one of the oldest ideas in all of criminal law, captured in this Latin phrase. It basically means an act doesn't make a person guilty unless their mind is also guilty. Section 18 is really just the modern version of that. It's about separating what you did from what you were thinking. Without a guilty mind, without that criminal intent or knowledge, there can't be a crime. So really what the law is trying to do here is a delicate balancing act. On the one hand, we need to hold people accountable for things that cause harm, but on the other hand, justice demands fairness. It means we have to recognize that sometimes awful things happen that are just pure, unavoidable accidents, even when people are being perfectly reasonable. Section 18 is the tool the law uses to find that balance. And that brings us full circle. We've seen that the law makes room to forgive a pure accident, but it draws a very clear, very bright line when it comes to carelessness. So here's the thought I want to leave you with. If the intent to cause harm is what really defines a crime, how should our laws judge a simple, careless mistake that ends up having the most tragic cost imaginable?